Hello guys, so you may have seen my video that I did with the Vauxhall Viva Rocks, but what you may not know is that Beaver is actually an old model name for Vauxhall. So this is the original, this is the Beaver, well more specifically the Viva GT. Now this is actually the oldest car I've ever driven. So let's jump in and see what it's like. So with older cars, we have old style seat belts and they are a bit of a faff to get strapped in initially. Right, nope, that's not quite right. There we are, right. Obviously not inertia real because, well, age of the car, of course. Right, let's turn the engine over, right. For a moment now, I thought it wasn't going to start. Now, immediately, the driving position is very awkward. I've got this massive steering wheel. I don't think I can move this seat, you know, with it being an old car. No, so the seat can't move. The steering wheel obviously doesn't move. And the pedals are offset to the right a little bit. The throttle is very light. Well, not very light, but it's quite sensitive. I think that's a better word. I think that's a better way of putting it. So away we go. The light is fading, so let's turn the lights on. They appear to be quite dim. Brilliant, right, away we go. So I've driven this a bit already, and I won't lie, it's not the easiest car to drive. Now this is going to be a quick drive because, as you can probably see, the light is fading. Oh, and now the clutch pedal is getting stuck behind the rubber mat. I don't want that. I don't want the clutch pedal to get stuck. Right, finding first gear in this 4-speed manual gearbox isn't always easy, especially when you need to do a hill start. All right, away we go. So with it being an old car, obviously there's no power steering, there's no ABS, there's no traction control, any of that nature. So as you can imagine, the brakes are trying to think of a polite way of putting this. Not great. I think that's the best way I can put it. You do need to put quite a firm press through the brake pedals to get the car to stop. Right, let's mind this speed bump. Right, let's go left. There we are, the indicators are working. Right. Like I say, the into second. Like I say, the throttle is quite sensitive. So I have found myself revving the car a little bit more than I really need to get it going. And the clutch pedal, it's got quite a high biting point. So getting used to the car, yes, it's not easy. But what about the car itself? So this particular model is from 1970. So as I mentioned earlier, this is the oldest car that I've driven. Is that third? There we go. So underneath the bonnet, we have a 2-litre petrol engine, naturally aspirated. As you can imagine, from it being from the 1970s, it doesn't have a great deal of power. But how much power does it offer? Well, to be precise, it has 112 brake horsepower, which by today's standards isn't very much at all. But what about performance figures? It will hit 60 miles per hour in 10 seconds, which seems pretty slow by today's standards, but you know, just imagine back in 1970, that would have been rather brisk. And the top speed was a whopping 100 miles per hour. But again, in the 70s, that would have been quite something. So, about to go on a national speed limit road. This would be interesting. Let's see what performance start. I'm in full fat at the moment, so I'm in top gear. Let's drop it down actually. Oh, that didn't sound healthy. And there we are, to a rather noisy 60. But in all fairness, it doesn't feel that slow because the car's quite light. Now, I don't know how much it weighs off the top of my head, but it hasn't got a lot of safety features. It hasn't got navigation or air conditioning or anything that you would expect from a modern car. And because of this, it is light and it feels really nimble. Now, there is a bit of play to the steering, so that's not actually doing that much. The steering isn't that responsive at all. It really isn't. The performance actually isn't that bad. It does offer a fair amount of performance. Now, I think the most you can expect from a car such as this, but it is quite nippy. But once you get used to the car, it is quite good fun to drive. It's quite supple as well, it's quite nice and comfortable. These leather seats are rather nice. They are most definitely comfortable. It's a bit of body lean in the corners, as you would expect of a car of this age. It hasn't got the most advanced suspension. Let's pop it into third. It does make a bit of a clunk when it goes into third, which isn't particularly sexy. I've got this massive steering wheel, and it feels like I'm having to turn it a fair bit to get the car to change direction. There we go. It gives you some kind of idea of what it would be like to try and steer a ship. These headlights, they are on, but they are like candles. Now, recently I tested the Peugeot 5008, and that had LED headlights, and it was literally night and day, the difference. You get a sense that you might be better off strapping 2 large torches to the front, in all honesty. But again, it's all part and parcel of the character of this car. I'm driving here, the steering wheel's rubbing on my thighs, the pedals aren't exactly laid out how I'd want them to be. I don't know how strong this handbrake is. So let's just, it's holding the car. Success. And yeah, it's not the easiest car to set off in if you're not used to this kind of car. And hill starts, don't talk to me about hill starts, because they are rather tricky, especially when every time you go for first, you end up in third. Right, is that first gear? Oh, that's almost smooth. Into second. There we go. Yeah, we are in business. There we are, getting used to it now, getting into the swing. So hopefully, guys, you can still see me, because as you can see, the light is fading and the cabin is not dingy, but because of this black roof lining, which I rather like, by the way, it does feel a little bit dark in here. I mean, inside is finished quite nicely. You've got a nice leather dashboard. You got, is that leather or is that vinyl? I think that might be vinyl on the door cards. And you've got what I believe is a vinyl roof lining. It's quite nice in here. And the team at Vauxhall have done a wonderful job of restoring this car. They really have. Now, the car has got 96,000 miles on the clock, give or take. Well, to be precise, 96,291. So it's been well used. But I don't get a sense that it's going to break down on me at any moment. Touch wood. But as you can imagine, oh, it's quite a big bump. As you can imagine, it's got bags and bags of character. And once you get past, oh, another big bump. Oh, once you get past the difficulties of driving this car, as you will see, it will bring a smile to your face. So it was restored by the Vauxhall Heritage team, which isn't a large team. It consists of 2 men, and at the time they had an apprentice to help them. And here it is in its former glory. Well, I say former glory. Originally, this car was finished in Sebring silver. But when the car was renovated, the Vauxhall team decided to go for something a bit more vibrant. So it's now finished in Monza red. Now, don't worry, that was an original colour, so don't think, oh, they've gone against the grain and they've painted it a colour which wouldn't have been standard from factory. No, 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 Monza red was an official Vauxhall colour at the time. So purists, don't worry. And I have to say, I think it looks really good. I'll tell you one feature I really like in here, the big GT logo on the centre console. That's really, really cool. And the whole package just looks brilliant. The styling, the Monza red paint, the bonnet scoops, the whole package, it's brilliant. Now, I have to be honest, when I first got in this car and started driving it, I thought, I've made a mistake here, because it did feel really difficult to drive to begin with. But now I've got used to it, I'm really enjoying this. Is this one of the best cars I've driven? No, but is it one of the most charming cars I've driven? Yes. it's certainly up there. I have to say it was good fun driving the Viva GT, even if it was a little bit awkward to begin with. And you know what? It's really refreshing to drive something a little bit different on my channel. So I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a big thumbs up and please subscribe for more car obsession. Oh, and one more thing, have a very Merry Christmas.